Mario and company have returned with new friends for an adventure through space and time. This is our review of the Super Mario Galaxy movie.
So we jump into this movie, which basically takes place right after the events of the Super Mario Brothers movie, which at the time it came out 3 years ago now. We were just talking about that before that, and I can't believe it was 3 years ago that this movie came out because it doesn't feel like it's been that long. But it was the highest grossing film of 2023. So, you know, lofty goals to follow up $1 billion movie, and judging by the box office yesterday, obviously we went and saw it the day it opened. It's the biggest opening of the year already at like $34 million or whatever, on track to just do astronomical numbers again. And we dive right back in. So this kind of takes place, like you said, right after the film. And, you know, you have the introduction of Princess Rosalina right out the gate here. You have, you know, a story that involves Bowser Jr. going to rescue his dad who was, you know, at the end of the last film, he was shrunken down and kind of more or less placed in a makeshift prison, if you want to even call it that, by, you know, Mario and Princess Peach here at the end of the first movie. And Bowser Jr.'s on this redemption tour to save his dad and continue the family quest of, you know, conquering the world and conquering the galaxy. So you kind of just jump in and it takes off from there, man. I gotta say, I'm kind of on the fence on how I feel about it, honestly, but given how everything goes. What are your initial thoughts coming out of it?
I'm very split in kind of three different ways, because I can look at it in three different ways, and two of them are pretty positive, and the third one is not.
Sure.
Because if you're looking at the first one, this is something kids are going to love. Yeah. This is definitely a kids movie that is big, it's loud, it is just non-stop, which with attention spans of kids these days and everything, it had our theater glued to the screen and stuff. Sure. So for being a kids movie, the kids are absolutely going to love and adore this. My girls loved it. And that's a good thing. I mean, you're making a kids movie for kids. Then there's the part of me that really enjoyed it because of all the nostalgia, that there are so many Easter eggs and in-jokes and characters that show up, and it's just one thing after. I think every single Mario game got some sort of representation in this, which is a pretty big history of Mario to include in there. Not only Mario, you have other characters in Nintendo's catalog that show up, which we'll get into a couple of those here in a little bit. But the third way to look at it is this was a very overloaded, crammed movie. We're throwing in everything and the kitchen sink. And the story kind of took a back seat to it. Because if you're looking at this to be like somewhat of an adaptation of the Mario Galaxy games, you're not really getting that. No. Rosalina, maybe, she has some pretty short time. Like, she's at the core and the heart of the story, but the setup is a minute here, a minute there. You already know you find Yoshi in that. They find Yoshi within like the first 5 minutes, and then he's just part of the gang, and they just go on from there. Like, everything is done at a very hectic, fast pace where they don't spend a very long time on anything too well. Like you get a little bit of the setup in the beginning that takes a little bit of time, but it is pretty much balls to the wall straight from the get-go. It's only about an hour and 40 minutes, so there's not a whole lot of time to spend in here. But yeah, it just so hectic and has so much stuff in it that the story was lacking in it. So that's the hard part about it. The kids are going to love it. It's a lot of fun for them. I loved a lot of the nostalgia stuff, but when I try to look at it as a film with a story, it's really lacking there.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely not a fleshed out plot at all. Like, it's pretty straightforward and linear, but it's about the same runtime as the last Mario film. They've got a very similar runtime. I can go into some positives as well. Visually, it's a stunning looking
absolutely
movie.
Stunning.
The animation is absolutely incredible in this. Like, you feel like you're in a cutscene of a game. Like, you really do. And that's not a negative here. Like, that's a very positive thing for this film. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a fleshed out story here, I would say you got a stronger story in the first movie than you did in this one. But they make up for that in the, like you said, the breakneck pace of this movie that just seems to just go, and doesn't really allow it to really sit in any type of story beat. Like, you move along like it seems like it's a lot of flash in this movie. Like it's a whole bunch of like power-ups are used in this movie. Like they go
So many
very
suits,
heavy in
yeah.
those, so many different suits. And that's kind of the nostalgia, like you said. Like literally, I feel like every single Mario game that's ever been made or produced got some kind of dedication in here. Some of which are very fun and very enjoyable as well. But it was so over the top and so focused on just that quick pace of everything that the story does, like you said, take a back seat here, where it's not the heaviest and meatiest of plots anyway. It's like, you know, princess gets kidnapped to power evil bad guy's weapon because she's magic, and on the side quest of that is rescuing dad, and it almost kind of feels like the Mario brothers even are secondary characters in this movie a little bit too. Like,
In a way, yeah.
like they kind of are, because it's like half a princess movie and half of a Mario movie, and kind of a little bit directionless, I would say, but it's still a fun time. Like we found ourselves laughing at the silliness of the movie in a good way. Like there's some genuinely funny moments in there, and it's a fun time, but we do have to kind of take it with that grain of salt that is very much geared towards a younger audience. We just happen to be the OGs that grew up with the original Mario Brothers, and you know, have seen it evolve as a game and a brand over the years, but this is still very much geared towards the younger demographic, and you can attest the theater was kind of engulfed in the film. Like we were worried that a lot of these kids were going to start like losing interest in the movie, but they didn't. Like they'd held their interest very well, and you have to give them some credit for creating a movie with that demographic and audience. This isn't a movie made for you and I necessarily.
I mean, that nostalgia part's for us, but
Yeah.
the rest of just the loud,
That's to keep
over the top is to keep the kids entertained. Yeah, that's why it's so hard for me to really see how I feel about this, is because I loved all the nostalgia. There's so much where you get accessories that we had with the NES and the Super Nintendo, but you also get so many different sound cues and character. Like there's got to be a few hundred characters in this film easily, 200 to 300. Most of them don't get any line to speak, but you're going through the whole Mario catalog, and it can be a bit overwhelming at times. If you're not a huge Mario fan, it's not really leaving a whole lot to you outside of that, because they try to put in, maybe there's a little bit of a love story developing between Mario and Princess Peach, and you get the relationship of Toad with the brothers and how that's still a little bit strained, and where Yoshi is. But it doesn't really give a whole lot of meat to anything. Even the Bowser Jr. and Bowser stuff is very thin. You get very little introduction or lore or story or really anything about Bowser Jr. You just get that, well, yeah, he's Bowser's son who was sent to boarding school, but now he's somehow got a spaceship and built a secret super base, and he's able to get his dad, and there's no like talk about, which you can tell we're going to have a little bit of spoilers here with this. No explanation of how he has this magical paintbrush that can do whatever he wants to do. You get very little with Rosalie. It's just, there's just so little to every bit and piece of this story, where I feel like the characters didn't have a whole lot to say either. Like Mario and Luigi got a little bit to say here and there, but I feel like the dialogue was really low for most of the characters. It was all about just jumping from like one action sequence to another, to another, to another, until the movie was over. Even the end of the movie ended very like fast and hectic. Like it was just like they're racing to get through this movie and get to the end and be done. Yeah, it's kind of how the pacing of it felt. It is very frantically paced.
Yeah, it's the perfect way to put it. It keeps the foot to the ground. It keeps the pedal to the floor, and don't stop. You don't let up. And that's not to say like there's an overwhelming number of characters. They do kind of put a little bit of emphasis on some other characters. Like we're not really spoiling anything too much with, you know, anything that Nintendo hasn't done themselves before the movie came out, because God forbid we have a surprise in a movie like this anymore. But, you know, you get the introduction of a very popular Nintendo video game character in Star Fox, which is voiced by Glenn Powell. And you get Donald Glover introduced as the voice of Yoshi, which is I love the story of how those two came to be in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was crazy because they like Donald Glover just called up Nintendo and was like, "Hey, I want to be a part of something." Like after he saw the first one, he's like, "I need to be a part of it." And they were trying to figure out different things, and they couldn't exactly think of it. And they brought up Yoshi. I can be Yoshi, and it just kind of worked out. Like he just kind of fought his way into be Yoshi, and even said that he loved the feedback from the first trailer, and people's like, "I'm glad they didn't get a big celebrity for Yoshi." You got Donald Glover, which is not a very small name in things. But even like with Glenn Powell getting to play Fox McCloud and getting to play him, he did not know at the time that he was contacting Nintendo that they were doing Star Fox in the Super Mario Galaxy movie. He was pitching his own Star Fox film to play him. And they were still debating behind the scenes because they weren't sure if they wanted to include him in the film. And then they got that call and they talked about it. It's like, all right, yeah, hey, we're actually going to be including him in here. So you want to do it? And they're like, yeah, I want to do it. Get your
foot in the door, man.
But yeah, he was perfect. They were both perfect to voice it because it gave Yoshi a little bit more of personality. Of course, he doesn't really speak past saying Yoshi, but they tried to do different mannerisms in a way. It's kind of like Groot. You're trying to say Yoshi in different ways to tell a different story. And they even make fun of that very early in the movie where Yoshi's telling the brothers his story and how he ended up where he is. And they're like, well, I guess we'll never know.
That was legitimately the funniest moment in the movie for me, where you have this flashback and it's like, well, he didn't say anything. So I guess it's so silly and so funny. But yeah, Fox was he was an interesting character the way they portrayed him in here, but you got some of the cool Star Fox stuff if you're a fan of the Star Fox
games. A barrel roll.
You got to do the barrel roll. You got, just some cool stuff in there. And if they do decide to branch off and kind of spin that off and do their own thing with it, that would be a lot of fun.
Please give us a Star Fox movie.
We need a Star Fox movie for sure.
And a new game.
We could do a whole episode on
was it the
just
Wii?
that.
The last time
we got a Star Fox game, but yeah, we get a little bit of his intro, which was, in my opinion, probably the coolest part of the movie. It was just the switch up in the animation style and just him talking about his backstory, what he did, and it kind of wink at the nod of the old classic Star Fox, Star Fox lovers like us that played the game and get to see the cool flash of some of the characters from that game as well.
Even a little nudging joke at some of the characters, like that's what you get for hiring a frog.
Exactly. It was so funny. I would love to see him. He's kind of a bit of a bumbling goof in this, but that's kind of the niche of this whole world that they've built here is everybody's kind of caricatures of what you would expect to come from these. Obviously, Jack Black is full on Jack Black in this movie, even when he's got the voice pitched to his smaller size versus, spoiler alert, he gets big at some point in the movie. But when he goes back to his regular voice, he's got that grandiose trying to talk like Bowser, and it's so silly and over the top. But these guys are all kind of just caricatures of what you think they should be. But I think everybody, for the most part, played their roles fine. It's just you kind of were hoping for a little bit more of a developed story now that you're a second movie into this. And it feels like they just kind of did the flashy throw as much as we can into this, because there are a ton of characters, like you said, that are into this, and several of them only get like a quick glance by or no more like to them other than like a quick here,
just
there,
a basic
and what
cameo
like,
for so many characters,
including one character in particular that I thought they would do completely differently than what they did with them. And I won't spoil that for people that haven't seen the movie yet, but there's one character that's very prominent in Mario lore, especially if you play any of the Mario games, especially the more recent ones in Mario Party and things like that, that it's kind of a 2-bit side henchman kind of role, and it's just a real brush and blink and you miss it kind of thing. And I was like, that's a choice. Like, I was a little disappointed in that, but yeah, man, there were so many characters and so many references that you kind of, I don't even think we caught them all. Like, that's how many they tried to
I would
cram
need
in.
another viewing to see all of the Easter eggs.
Smart on you for intriguing us to go back.
Which is, yeah, a nice bait for them to do that. But yeah, and that's also kind of the problem with like the Mario Galaxy stuff with it is you get to see all these different worlds, but a majority of them are just flybys. So you get to spend 5 seconds going through a water world and 5 seconds going over this world and 5 seconds over this world or 5 minutes in this world. Like you're not, I don't think any one area got more than maybe 10 minutes at a time. Like everything was just 5-minute bits and pieces. And I did feel like Bowser was a little strange in here. Like you get, okay, he's been imprisoned. To be able to kind of be set free, he's got to be on his best behavior and stuff. And he has somewhat of a redemption line, which just gets completely thrown out the window at one point. And it's like, I guess I see it, but it was just kind of weird and strange how they handled it. Like they felt like they didn't really know how they wanted to handle that because they were just doing everything at a breakneck pace. And like I said, Fox was great to see. It was a lot of fun. Did he fully fit? Yes, but no. Yeah. I mean, it was fun how they fit him in there, but it wasn't exactly something that you had to have. But for those fans of him, it was really good to see him in something after so long. And yeah, it's just like you just got so many different references. It's just like it's fun, but it's overwhelming and it's overloading, especially for those who know all the references. I feel like I was spending more time of the movie going over the references than actually like really watching the movie. Okay, there's a sign for this. Well, here's the dungeon music. Oh, here's, of course they do a little throwback to the NES in a few different ways, which was fun, but you're kind of just, I'm paying more attention to all the Easter eggs than I really am to the movie all. And for those who are big fans of Mario Galaxy and Rosalina and that story and stuff, it's very much a minor part of the story, even though it is a major part of the story. Her involvement with Brie Larson being such, if you don't know much about her other than being Captain Marvel and the unnecessary hate she gets online, she's a humongous Nintendo fan. She is a gamer,
big nerd,
but a Nintendo gamer. But she loves Mario. She loves Animal Crossing. She loves Nintendo, and she got to be a part of something, but this movie kind of left it where you're hoping in the third one, because it's gonna be printing money that they're gonna get a third one, that there's a bit more meat to her story and that information, because it set up an interesting bond and connection with things in here. But her story was probably, and her interactions was probably 3 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, very minimal.
And she's very minimally in this film.
Yeah, and that's the disappointment about it, right? Is you hope that Rosalina has a bigger presence, but it's still mostly a Princess Peach movie, and about Peach's story and Peach finding out, where her place and everything is, which is kind of the through line from the first one that I appreciated. That they kept that theme and kind of paid that off the way they did in this film to kind of move forward into the third one, with another interesting character to be introduced in that one too. If you go see the film in theaters, which if it makes $1 billion, you're probably going to see it at some point. There are 2 credit scenes in there that very much set up where they're going moving forward in the series.
Especially the last one.
Yeah, especially the end credit scene is a clear indicator, much like as it was in the first film where we got the Yoshi tease, and obviously Yoshi's got a presence in this. The character they introduce in this one is very much going to be a big part of the next one that they do, and that's exciting too. But it threw a lot of things at you at the expense of a potentially better story that they could have told, and I think that's the biggest knock on it, because you can't knock anything. Like, the nostalgia factor was awesome. There was so much stuff that they threw in there as a wink and a nod to long-time, parents who, older folks who grew up with the Mario games and the Mario story and love Mario. There's a lot of that for you, while keeping it interesting for the kids. But there really was an opportunity to go a little bit further in the story than they did, and then that's going to kind of weigh it down. You can't really knock the animation, because the animation's incredible.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. It was bright, colorful. Yeah. It was just well done. It was just a lot thrown at your face.
Yeah, it was a lot, and some weird choices for a few other things too that we don't have to really dive too far into. But yeah, man, it had the potential to take another step and give us something better, and I don't feel like it hit the nail on the head with that as far as the story goes, which is a little disappointing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of fans, especially us older fans, were kind of looking at this was, okay, are we really kind of setting up a Mario cinematic universe? Are we really connecting all these worlds? In a way, it's yes, but in a way, it's also a big no, because you don't get some characters that show up in the first movie coming back in the second, so they didn't really have an importance there. You get Star Fox and a few other characters, but no one that's really like majorly big that's setting up something else. Like the only thing I could really see coming out of this is Star Fox getting his own film, getting a spinoff, hopefully a game or something else, because we know that a lot of people are looking at, with the first movie with Donkey Kong, you got him appearing in the movie, then we got Donkey Kong Bonanza as a launch title for the Switch 2, maybe having Star Fox in here will hopefully say that, all right, we're going to be putting out a new Star Fox game, or a remaster or a remake, something to give Star Fox fans something this year. But it's like, you don't, this was just kind of one of those, it's almost like a TV show when you have those filler episodes. It was almost a filler episode as a film. A lot of times the sequels are better than the first, and I say in many ways the animation's better, it's brighter, more colorful, they do a really good job with that. But yeah, it was really lacking on just giving you an interesting story. Like the bones of it was there, that you could have given it a good story, but then you decided to just action set piece after action set, which is, again, why I'm so torn, because it's fun. Yeah. I loved looking at it. Yeah. And I was very distracted by it. Sure. But then when I finally started thinking about the story, like, what did we get any character progression of anybody?
Peach, sure.
10% to each character, maybe. Peach and Mario, Bowser a little bit. But yeah, it just, they sacrificed the story. It was because it's kind of odd. You had the same directors doing this film, but you wonder, is this just a problem? And you had Shigeru Miyamoto a part of it, the king of Nintendo that everyone absolutely loves and adores, and I still love and adore him, but it's just, you don't know exactly kind of where the decision-making went with just kind of giving up on the story.
Yeah. It just kind of falls, for me, this movie just kind of falls into that category of just turn your brain off and enjoy it. Don't overthink it. It's meant to be silly. It is presented as silly as it can possibly be. There's a lot of cool references, like we keep saying. If you're a fan of Mario throughout the years, there's a little something for everybody in here. It does come as a sacrifice to a more cohesive, fleshed out story, but I don't even think that's the goal for them in these. I really don't, because there's so much of the visual wow that they try to throw at you here, and they did a great job at that. Like, it's A+ on the animation and action sequences. It really is, but it just moves so quickly that you're, like you said, it has to knock it a little that you're focusing so much on the Easter eggs and where they're throwing this, and this at you, that it does a disservice to the story in that case, because you don't really get the opportunity to really follow along, and there's just not the opportunity for that. And that's a missed opportunity on Nintendo's part. But like we say, this film is not geared towards us. It's got the throws, it's got the nostalgia and the references and stuff for us to keep us kind of interested, but this is very much geared towards kids. And, you know, like you always say when we go into grading this, like your kids had the reaction that Nintendo wanted from them out of this, right? So mission accomplished on Nintendo for doing that. The kids all seem to be bouncing out of the theaters like they had a great time. And at the end of the day, what more can you ask? Like, it's not, these movies aren't intended to be serious. The first one wasn't serious. I mean, my God, there was a song out of the movie that just blew up that said the word peaches 350 times in the song. Like, it was the catchy part of the movie that everybody remembered. And you know, it's stuff like that they do well in these movies.
You made me think of another song that appears in this movie that I did not expect to be in there, which is a throwback to anybody over 35 probably is going to get that reference, but older, you don't get any lyrics, but when you hear that beat, you know exactly what that song is. Like, oh, they went there and they put that song.
Such a weird choice. It was fun though.
It was fun, but it was strange. And yeah, that's kind of the problem. Like, the first one did feel like it was for both. It felt like it was for the kids and it was for the adults. You were world building, you were setting up this universe, and you were, you know, towards the end, really setting up that they have these pipes that can lead to different worlds. You have all that stuff. And when you lead into this movie, it's like, oh, it's galaxy plumbers. Mario and Luigi are just going everywhere and anywhere and traveling, and it's just breakneck pace of it. Like, you got that both for that first one, and this one definitely was much more geared towards the kids. I kind of want to compare it to another, because Illumination does, this who does Despicable Me and the Minion stuff. The first one felt like a Despicable Me movie. We were trying to have a story about the parents and everything else in there, while this sequel felt more like the Minion spinoffs, where it's just about being as ridiculous, over the top, and the story doesn't really matter. Yeah. It's just about being goofy and silly. So it's kind of that comparison for me, that the first one was like a Despicable Me 1 or 2, and this was like a third Minions movie. Like, it felt like it jumped in style and presentation and storytelling, kind of like by that much, that it just felt that different. Like, I don't like exactly talking down about it, because in the end I did have a good time with it. It just, as I opened with, it feels like you can look at it in 3 different ways and have 3 different opinions on it, because if you're a kid, you're not going to care about the story or anything that happens. You love it's big, it's flashy, there's fighting, it's colorful, you love it. If you're a big Nintendo head and you've been playing since the 80s like we have, you're going to love the nostalgia and stuff, but then it just becomes an overload at some point where, like I said, I felt like I wasn't watching the movie anymore. I was just looking, all right, that sign's an Easter egg, that character's an Easter egg, that sound is an Easter egg, that picture is an Easter egg, this is like, you're Easter egg hunting throughout the entire movie, where it's almost like, all right, we're going to give the kids big and flashy, and we're going to give the adults a nostalgia, and we're just kind of distracting both of you because we didn't really get the story done, and we're just distracting both of you. Well, here's something shiny for the kids, and here's something shiny for the adults. Because, if you're going in for a story, you're not really getting that in here.
I have the perfect analogy of what I would compare this movie to, okay? And bear with me here. This is, in my opinion, the animated equivalent of the Fast and the Furious.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's kind of the same concept, right? First Fast and Furious movie, great movie, world building. You get to really feel for these characters. And then by the time it gets to like the 6th, 7th, and 8th one, it's just a spectacle of action. Like,
you're in
story
space.
is just ridiculous. You accept that it's going to be ridiculous, and you just go and have a good time. It's the animated equivalent of Fast and Furious. So, like, that's kind of what we...
It just took less films to jump.
Sure, we got there a lot quicker than we did here, and we went to space a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But, it feels like that for me, which makes it such a tough movie to grade, because it really is. Like, knowing very clearly that these movies are geared towards kids. It's not a great story that they tell, but the visual spectacle lifts it up higher in this case. Like, we're knocking the story and like the missed effort, because we harp so much on story here, but this is very much intended to be a visual spectacle. And with that, as good on par with anything we've seen that is intended to do that. Like, it's fun. We had a great time.
Yeah.
Like, that's not to say we had a negative movie-going experience. How many times were we like both like kind of looking at each other when did you see that? Did you catch that? But we were doing so much of that. Like, it did kind of, unfortunately, it was, taking away from that story from us, because there wasn't enough of us to like really sink our teeth into for this movie. But this movie wasn't meant for us. So it's one of those, we could still have a good time in watching it, but that makes it so hard to like critique. And I feel kind of bad for critiquing it, because like, if you base it on its merits at a movie, it's as a movie in how we typically define movies, it's not a good movie. It's not a good story, but there's a lot of other fun elements that are just like, like,
if you judge it as entertainment, it's entertaining.
It's entertaining to a T. Like, it's a lot of fun. Like you said, if you love the first Mario movie, you're absolutely gonna love this one too. Like, it's still so much fun. It's just very lacking on a strong story development from the first one that you really could have taken it and gone even further with it. And I'm kind of hoping when they do go to the third movie, which is going to happen, because this movie is also going to probably make close to $1 billion, but I really hope they go back to some of that heart storytelling and world building that they did in the first one that made the first one such a special, experience that did as well as it did, that resonated with everybody. Obviously, that it was a $1 billion+ box office. You kind of hope that they go back to that element of it with the new character that's coming into play in the third film and the opportunity to really kind of take that story and go forward. I really hope they get a little bit more emphasis on that, because the visual stuff's going to be there. They've got that animation formula down to a science right now. It's so good, but you really hope they take the next movie as an opportunity to elevate a better story, and you'd have a 10 out of 10 movie for me.
Yeah, because you got to wonder, what do they have left now?
Yeah.
Because, like I said, we were so distracted by the nostalgia and the Easter eggs. Then, Super Mario 1, 2, and 3, Super Mario World, Yoshi's Island, you had Galaxy, and some references, I think, to Sunshine in there. There was Mario 64 references. There was Mario Odyssey references. Like, you referenced almost every game. What did you leave yourself to do in a third that's going to be fun? And you also leave it in a way like, what story do you have to tell now? Like, yeah, you've got a new character that's going to be coming in, but what's going to be interesting in that? What from the Mario universe do you have left? Is it just going to be bringing in other properties to make it kind of more interesting than that? You kind of almost painted yourself into a corner here with how many references and Easter eggs and jokes you threw in that, what do you have? I mean, Mario has been around for 40 years now. You've got a lot of games. He's appeared in a lot of other games like Punch-Out and everything else, being refs and being other things. And you've got the sports games and everything else. But what kind of story, chunk-wise, do you have left? You've got one big character that's coming in for a third one. But it makes you wonder exactly, how does she fit? How do they fit in? Guess I spoiled that a little bit there, but I'm not going to go deeper on it.
You don't need a PhD to understand the character that's coming. We're just choosing not to say it to completely spoil it. But if you've been following with what they've been introducing from the first to the second one, you got to know who's coming.
Yeah. But I say, like, just what kind of story they're going to do, because it left in a point that we almost got a very fast and quick happily ever after for the most part with things. Like, the first one did enough world building where it's set up like, oh, there's so many interesting things. You think, well, maybe they would reference one or two games and we'd get to go through that. So if they're doing Mario Galaxy, we're going to explore a lot of worlds, and we're going to get to see the splendor of how many different universes and worlds inside of this universe. And we get to see a little bit more of Rosalina being the guardian of the cosmos and what that exactly means. Brie Larson's basically playing Captain Marvel again in Mario form. But you just kind of glazed over that so you could fit in more references and more action. And that's the hard part, because all that was fun. But if you're going to critique something, you got to critique every element of it. And when it just kind of like left, like, they're definitely doing a third, but what happens in that third?
What they really, and this is what I can see them trying to drag out the franchise longer doing, is you've got most of the heroes in the Mario universe kind of represented here for the most part. You haven't gotten to all the villains. There are several Mario villains and Mario adjacent villains that haven't been introduced yet, because the first two movies have been Bowser and Bowser Jr. focused. And there are several other ones. There are two in particular that a lot of people are clamoring for to have an appearance at some point. And maybe we get them in the third movie. But there are definitely at least two major villains, at least in the most recent eras of Mario, they're in all the games, that they still can kind of introduce into the story. But I'm hoping they don't drag that out to kind of slow roll introducing them as characters into this, because that's really all that's left for them to do as far as character wise, unless you start throwing out other Nintendo property characters, which there's one that you and I are both kind of clamoring for that I think would be cool in the third one, to introduce another major Nintendoverse. And there's really two or three of them, but at this point we don't know if they're going to be involved or not. But there's so much potential there to do more of that moving forward. But villain. It really feels like it's going to move more into getting other villains introduced at this point, and that's kind of what they have to do.
And the other kind of odd / interesting thing is that we do have Legend of Zelda coming out as a film, but it's going to be live action. So when you're
Correct.
trying to think about what characters they could use going forward,
Sure.
and try to work Link and Zelda and stuff in there, well, now you're doing a live action, so do you want to leave them completely out of it? And outside of Mario and Donkey Kong and everything, Link and Zelda are two of your biggest properties in there. So now you're kind of doing the live action, so we don't know if we'll ever see them in the animated verse, because a lot of people thought, well, you're starting with the Super Mario Brothers movie, just do everybody in animation. That we get a animated Legend of Zelda movie or something, animated Star Fox movie, give Donkey Kong his own movie. Thought maybe they'd do that and start branching off and just get, or as everyone's clamoring for, giving a Super Smash Brothers movie, which I don't that would almost feel exactly like this movie to me, that you would just have an overload of characters where they would have little to no story.
That's their,
and it would just be throwing in all the characters.
Don't worry, that is Mario Brothers Endgame, and it's coming in 2038, and we're gonna love it when it comes out at some point.
Kirby just snapping his fingers.
Can you imagine Kirby with the Infinity Gauntlet? That would be insane.
Snaps his fingers, but then just hoovers everybody. Hoovers half of the Smash Brothers cast.
He's like their version of Galactus, though. He's just world consuming.
That would be funny if they ever did that, which it could have worked in Super Mario Galaxy movie. If they're flying through there and you just see this ominous face, like big hole in the background, and you're seeing stuff swirling and stars going. And then you just kind of fade out more, and you see, and it's just Kirby that's just like eating planets and stuff like that. They could have made him Galactus.
They could have. They very well could have. But that's their adjacent version of that. Spoiler alert, Kirby's not in this movie. But
She could have been. That would have been fun to see Kirby.
yeah, like I said, he's one of the few, like, quote-unquote heroes that they haven't really dealt with. There's one other really big Nintendo adjacent one that we haven't mentioned yet that I think would be dope in a film like this if they had the right opportunity, but we'll leave that for another day. But
the Duck Hunt dog.
Yes. Why not? Get him in there. Do you know his name?
I was waiting for that reference of something to happen where something gets shot down and he just comes up and giggles.
Yeah.
And then just disappears and has nothing else to do in the movie. Just comes up and giggles.
Yeah, that would actually be very funny. But yeah, we'll see what they do moving forward. But it just kind of leaves it on a kind of meh note from a story. But I'm ready to go in and give this an actual official score and button this up, though.
Yeah, so the Super Mario Galaxy movie, it's kind of a tough one to rate because, as I said to open this up, there is 3 different ways to look at it. If you're looking at something that is fun and entertaining for your kids that are going to keep them enthralled and engaged throughout the entire film, this is going to be one that they're going to absolutely love. It's bright, it's colorful, it's got beautiful animation, it has so much going on that the short attention spans that a lot of kids have anymore, it's going to satisfy all that because it does not take a break. And then for all of us who are a little bit older, the parents and the people who've been around Nintendo for a while, you get a lot of nostalgia, you get a lot of Easter eggs, you get a lot of hidden stuff, a lot of references to past Mario games and characters throughout Nintendo's catalog. But at the same time, if you're looking at it as a film and critiquing as a film, it has such a hard breakneck pace that it just doesn't let up. It doesn't allow time for the story to really develop or give you a lot of meat and bones on it, that it struggles a bit with actually giving you something in a story that you really enjoyed. I'm probably going to give this a 7, which does still seem a little bit higher than how we've been talking. But as I've talked about, it's made for kids. My girls loved it, so I'm giving it extra points for that. The nostalgia factor of all the Easter eggs and all the stuff that I saw from my childhood and memories growing up, that gave it some extra points. All the negative I have to say about this film is the really big lack of a cohesive, solid story and explanation of why these characters are kind of where they're at, and that it doesn't leave a lot of room for the third movie going forward.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on so many good points there. It's hard to break it down, so I kind of want to end with my overall grade on it, but if you're looking at it based on an animation and visual perspective, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 visuals. It's stunning. It's beautiful. It's a gorgeous film to look at. If you talk about the nostalgia factor, Easter eggs for days in this film, and kind of just a rapid shot of, oh, hey, look at this character. Hey, look at this character. Hey, look at this character. They incorporated so many. They did a fine enough job. I'd give that an 8 out of 10 as far as nostalgia goes, because there's a lot of really cool references, but there is a lot of blink and you'll miss it kind of stuff because of how fast the movie goes. Storyline wise, I'm giving it like a 3. It's just not a good story. It's not a good plot. If you're looking for a plot in this movie, like, from a critical perspective, it misses the mark big time just because it feels so light. Like, the plot is just kind of thrown out with it. And I want to sum it up by kind of just making the same comparison that I made a little bit ago. This feels like a very Fast and Furious-esque type of film that awesome visuals, awesome spectacle, the action in it's great. You're not going to those movies for the story. And in this one, it kind of feels like that too. So I'd actually... It's funny you gave it a 7 because that's exactly where I landed it with mine too. Because overall, the nostalgia, the fun, it really elevates and bumps up the score of this film for me. That if it were not as crisp looking, not as fluid, not as smooth running, not as bright and colorful and vibrant as it is to look at, would really drag down the score of this movie for me. It really would. But they do such a good job of that. I have to elevate it up beyond like a really bad score for just something that we would normally hammer other this type of movie for, as far as like a little thinner plot, not a ton of character development outside of Princess Peach in this movie, like just not a ton of things to really hang your hat on narrative wise. But that's not the point of these movies. These movies are meant for the kids, and they don't have to be super deep plots. And like you said, the kids just absolutely loved it. It's going to be another home run movie for Illumination Studios. Like, this is another probably going to make $1 billion again because it's already pacing crazy numbers for opening weekend, and it's going to have some staying power because there's a bit of a lighter schedule of movies coming out in the next few weeks at least. So, you know, it's going to have some staying power, especially with families and stuff. A lot of spring breaks coming up, or more opportunities for families to get out and see this. If you have kids that love the first movie, take them to see this one too. 7 is a fair score, in my opinion, for this because the visuals and so many other things are done well that it really elevates a very light, thin plot and narrative of a story to a much higher place than it probably normally would get if it were geared towards an audience like us. Yeah. So for that reason, I think 7 is a fair score for this film. It's still a ton of fun. I'm going to watch it again. The rewatchability bumps it up for me too. Like, I'm going to go back and check it out again. I've watched the first Mario film a couple times. I can't believe it came out 3 years ago. Yeah. I'm still kind of hung up on that. Where is time going? Can you tell me where time went? Where does it go?
I feel like yesterday that's how we're going to feel old and sound old. Like, just high school was a couple years ago when it's going on like 24 years for me.
Insane.
It's insane.
My knee just popped when you said that.
You're going to be getting some ibuprofen after we finish filming.
Absolutely going to be taking some ibuprofen.
And a nap.
I wish I could take a nap. I want a nap so bad. But no, it's still a fun time, man. I know we were harsh on it, but I still enjoyed this. I'm going to watch it again.
That's why it's so hard to rate.
It's hard to rate it.
Even with our 7s, I feel like almost I've given it too much. But then I feel like it's there because I did have fun with it. That's the hard part about it. It's a so-so movie that is made better by beautiful animation and all the nostalgia and stuff with it. There's some good jokes, there's some bad jokes.
Of course.
I think I even found, because it had me searching for stuff so much in there, that I found an issue with that they didn't do, is that there is one part where it's Bowser Jr. and his henchmen, and he like beats on his chest when they're like overreacting to stuff, but there's no sound. So that they forgot to do the audio for that, because everything else has it. And like, there's a few other parts where I found like there should be some clicking or there should be something going on with the controls, and there's no sound. So it's like, because they had me searching for all the Easter eggs, I kind of saw that like, wait, that should have had a beating sound to it, and you kind of missed that. And that's kind of where your enjoyment of this film is really going to depend on a lot of factors. I could enjoy it more with seeing my girls having a lot of fun with it.
For sure.
Being a big Nintendo fan and someone who grew up with from the NES to now, there's so much nostalgia to go over, even though I felt overwhelmed and overloaded with it. Yeah. But if you're not a big Mario fan or big video game fan, about all you could really expect out of this film is the spectacle, the fights, and the visuals. Because you're not going to get all the references. I know my kids didn't get all the references, but they got the bright colors and the fighting and the action and stuff. And they're not going to care about the story, but it really depends on if you're a big Nintendo person, you're probably going to have a good time with it. If you just want to turn your brain off and get the visuals and everything else, then you're going to have a good time. But if you actually go into this expecting an adaptation of the Mario Galaxy games or a good solid story, you're probably going to end up pretty disappointed with it.
For sure. And one of my favorite, like, niche Mario characters is heavily involved in one of the big action sequences of the movie. One of the most visually stunning action sequences of the movie. I kind of nerded out a little bit when they made an appearance, and there were several of them. And just a kind of spoiler, if you go watch the movie, one of my favorite characters is duplicated several times. One of my favorite niche, just aesthetically, is just one of the coolest looking characters in Mario. But yeah, it's still a ton of fun. It's still a joyful time in the theater. Like we said, it's going to make a ton of money. The Super Mario Galaxy movie is in theaters now. Go check it out. If you don't, you're probably going to be like one of 5 people on the planet that's not going to watch it anyway, but it's going to make bank. It's going to do really good. And I'm excited to see how it holds up compared to the other one, the first one, as far as like box office goes too, because it's still so rare that those movies make as much money as they do overall. But I got high hopes for it, especially as big of an international property as Mario is. It's going to do well. It's going to do really well.
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, you got the first one became the highest grossing animated film of all time in its run, which it got beat by, Inside Out 2, and then you had the Chinese film, I forget the sequel, Niza or something like that. I forget the name of it. That just decimated everything. Sure. But yeah, it did, just because a lot of people were really worried and questioned about, all right, you took Legend of Zelda before and Mario before, and you turned it into cartoons and the mixed live action and cartoons. The Mario one was definitely done better, and I guess Zelda was a short kind of series that sprung off of the Mario show, which a lot of people loathe that. And this is the first time, because Nintendo is very guarded about the properties. You don't get to touch their characters and their properties unless they really want you to. And hearing that they were going to do an animated film based off of Mario and stuff, you just wondered how it was going to be. And that ended up becoming a gigantic hit. And that's why it was a little bit more disappointing that they just didn't give more to the story. It felt like you were watching an abridged version of a video game run, of just watching them do all the main action sequences to speed run it. It's kind of video game speed run as a movie. Yeah. It's basically what it ended up at. It's a video game speed run as a film.
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy to explain like what it is. It's like watching somebody try to beat a game in 15 minutes, and they know all of the secret levels and then all the stuff. It's that talking about more Mario nostalgia, right? If you know all the secrets, it's like they got the 2 whistles in Mario 3, which is still one of my favorite games of all time. So, yeah, it's a ton of fun. Go check it out. It's so worth the time to go see it, and
just turn your brain off and watch it.
Yeah, and you'll have an absolute blast. I know that for sure.
Yeah, so Super Mario Galaxy movie, go check it out. If you do, come talk to us about it, and we'll see what your thoughts are, because I do feel like it's going to be a little polarizing depending on your level of kind of Nintendo fandom, but also your fandom of animation and everything else. Like, there's so many good qualities. That's why it's so disappointing that they just didn't take enough time with the story. Yeah. So thank you so much for tuning in, and if you feel so inclined, do all the things to help the show out, from follows, shares, likes, and comments on social media to subscribing on YouTube and your favorite audio platforms. All of it helps us out so much, and we can't thank you enough for all the support.
You can also become a subscriber over on Patreon to get each episode delivered to you early, exclusive merch items, and your name read out at the end of every episode. Check it out at patreon.com/we'll bring the popcorn.
That's going to do it for this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.